Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the AI Show Live, where we record AI Show. Hi, Bea.
Hi, Aishigo. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm happy for another AI show together. I
Yay!
like working with you, Aishigo.
Yay. We have some secret team in the background too. Seth is with us, and we have Tracy. Maybe we can
Yeah,
here.
lots of people today.
Yes. And what are
Yeah.
you going to talk about today, Bea?
We're going to talk about batch endpoints, and there's like all these Azure ML features that I work with, and I'm totally not supposed to have favorites because that's just a bad thing. I work with all features equally, but I do. And batch endpoints is one of my favorite features, so I'm actually particularly excited about having Tracy on the show today. So.
Oh, yeah, I am excited too. Hi, everyone. Hello, Seth, Andres, TechCraft, Roblox.
So many people. Where is everyone listening from or watching from? Hello, everyone. Where is everyone? Washington. Seth is in Washington. Me too. What a coincidence. Seth. We're both in Washington. Incredible.
You work for the same company too?
That's even more of a coincidence.
Yes.
Hello, Ramshi. Andres is watching from Sweden. Nice. So it's like Friday night there. Wow. So you're like choosing to watch us on a Friday night. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Andrew is watching from the UK. Also even in the UK.
Thank you.
Thank you for dedicating your Friday nights to, me and Aisha. We're honored.
And Seth.
Who else? Okay, so we have Sweden and UK and Washington. Yeah. Okay, so it's like, yeah.
We are like the dinner conversation, I'm assuming.
Yeah, exactly, right. Cool.
Welcome, Tracy.
Yeah. Let's have Tracy. Tracy. Do you wanna tell us, like, are you excited about doing this thing, talking about batch endpoints?
Sure. Hi everyone. Nice to be on the show.
This is Tracy. So Tracy is the PM for batch endpoints, and she's designed all this goodness that we're going to explain to you today. So anything good that you like about it, let Tracy know. Anything bad, just keep it to yourself. No, I'm kidding. Like, just give us feedback. Let us know. We want to improve the product. So just, yeah, let us know. So Aishigo, you just came back from. I woke up this morning wondering if we talk about batch endpoint. I know, me too. I saw just like this urge that I just like, yes. Totally.
Yeah.
So Aishigo, you just came back from a vacation, and so did I, right?
Yeah. I mean, yours seemed amazing.
And yours too.
Yeah, and you came inspired to do some projects. So
yes,
tell us about it.
It was good. Tracy, you also came back from a vacation. I know that.
Yeah, I just took a long vacation just to hit myself up for this show.
Where did you go? Did you just stay local? You're also in Washington, right?
Yeah. I'm also in Washington. What a coincidence. I stay local. I didn't go anywhere. I just be with my kid at home.
Okay, that sounds good. Some chill time.
Yeah.
And Aishkal, you went to Death Valley, right?
Yeah. It was very interesting. Death Valley is a huge place. It's the driest, hottest place in US, I think.
And I think it's in the world, right? It isn't like the heat.
Yeah, like, I was just thinking, is it the Northern Hemisphere or the world? I'm not sure. One of those things is the world, but yeah, it's a very
a lot of superlatives, whatever they are. Biggest, hottest, lowest.
Yeah. It's just big, and there's nobody and no water, nothing else. The reason it's called Death Valley is early 1900s, when there's late 1800s, I think, there's a gold rush, and everybody comes to California, try to be rich. But a group of European people, they just got stuck in that valley, and only one of them died. Thankfully.
Oh.
That's the name.
So Seth says, if you want like the driest humor, just go to Death Valley and do a show from there. That would be like super dry.
Seth, you should come. Would you like to come for a minute and say hi? Your hair and makeup is perfect all the time. So
thank you. I got a new machine, so I didn't want to do the AI show on a new machine, because you know how when you get the new machine, you're like, I don't know if this is going to work, and all my buttons don't work all the way.
Oh, no. But your microphone works, and you still sound very good.
Thank you. It's the microphone. Like, I am really shrill and high-pitched without this microphone. Bea will attest, because she's met me in person. And Aishul, you've met me.
I have.
Right?
No, actually, I haven't.
We did. It was at a Cloud Advocate reunion thing we did maybe years ago. It was in the Maiden Bower in Bellevue.
Yeah, but I don't remember meeting you. I feel like I would remember.
Aishul, that's not nice. Just say yes.
I'm very forgettable in person. Just ask Tracy.
Tracy forget about you already.
Oh my goodness! But this isn't my show, okay? So I'm intruding. I'm sorry.
We welcome you. So we have here a very nice message. Look at that. So Dan, assuming that's your real name, which I don't know, but let's assume it is.
No, his real name is Craftable.
Yeah.
Craftable, assuming that's your real name, I can guarantee you that by the end of the show, you will know how to use batch endpoints. And I will be so happy that you will, if you will use it, if you let us know, like future show, whatever, if you come here and let us know, I used them for my graduate project and it was awesome. And I got like straight A's and it was amazing. And I passed.
Hopefully it was straight A's like grades and not straight A's like, because that sometimes happens when we work on things in grad school.
Usually they kind of go hand in hand. I feel like to get like an A, there's a lot of that goes like that leads to it.
Oh my goodness. That's true.
Totally.
Seth, you can't go without that joke.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Oh.
I thought you were so original.
Oh, wow. This one's really daddy. I don't know if I can do this one. I'm going to turn the page on this one.
I think I want that one.
I have a pen that can write underwater. It can also write other words too.
Good one.
Me, folks.
Yeah, now try going to Death Valley and telling that joke.
All right. Thank you, Seth, for the joke and coloring our morning. So
yeah. So like I kind of skipped these, but like Andrew says, it's very cold there, and Andres says, lots of snow. It's cold here in Washington. Is it cold in San Francisco, Aishul?
Yeah, it looks like dark, but San Francisco never gets really cold, so it's still kind of like springy.
Do you know who's not cold? I don't know how to pronounce your name, but I bet you're not cold because you're in Nigeria.
We should build an app to make sure we pronounce all of the names correctly.
That would be nice. Oh my goodness. Look at that. Okay, that is cool. Tajikistan is cool.
And it must be even older there.
That's been on my list of places to visit for like ever. So yeah, you have my respect. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. I know it's late for you right now.
Yeah, I always dream of going to Turkey with you.
I would like that.
Have you been?
No, I want to. Tracy, have you been to Turkey?
No, never.
No.
Oh yeah, we should do an AI show from Turkey.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
And yeah, Tajikistan is not super close, but closer, I guess, from there.
Right.
All right.
All right. So Tracy.
Yeah.
Tracy, you're going to tell us about batch endpoints, right? We're going to be recording an interview. So for those of you that haven't watched this before, that are not familiar with the format of the AI show, so the way that this works is we're going to record an interview with Tracy, and you're going to watch us recording that interview live. And so which means you're going to see us mess up, maybe. You're going to see us like redo things, maybe, hopefully not. So you kind of have like the behind the scenes kind of scoop of how we do this interview. So yeah, that's what we're doing. So Tracy, are you ready? Aishkul, are you ready? Are you guys both ready?
Yes.
I'm ready.
Yeah. Can't wait. Stay tuned. Working on a water distribution network project with HTS forecasting. Would love to use this. Awesome. So that's, I assume, for your graduate project. Is that master's or PhD? Craftable?
Well, maybe we'll get the answer after the show. I mean, during the recording, we're not going to be able to answer your questions, but Seth might answer on the chat and hold on to them for after the recording.
Yeah, and also Tracy will stay after the interview for a little bit, and she can answer all of your questions. And also, like after Tracy leaves us, then I will show you a blog post that I wrote on batch endpoints, and so we'll walk over everything like super slowly with more time and answer all your questions along the way. So there will be like this whole show is going to be like full of batch endpoints. So if that's what you want to learn, you're in the right place. And Craftable Dan says that he's doing his master's. Awesome.
Good luck. All right.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, Tracy, do you have a question? Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Awesome. So I'm going to remove you and remove myself. Bea, if you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay.
All right. You don't want to miss this episode of the AI show where Tracy Chen talks about batch endpoints. Stay tuned. What happened? Did the music not play until the end?
Oh, sorry. I messed it up.
That's why you're here watching this live. You watch us mess up. So we're going to have to edit this out of the future kind of edited version of the interview. Okay, so I'll do it again.
Okay, thank you.
Ready? Okay. You don't want to miss this episode of the AI show where Tracy Chen talks about batch endpoints. Stay tuned. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Bea.
Welcome to the AI show. I'm super excited to have you on the AI show, as you know, because I love your features. So I'm really excited about what you have to tell us today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here too.
Awesome. Well, just to begin, obviously I know who you are and I know what you do, but a lot of people out there may not. So tell us who you are and what you do.
Sure. So my name is Tracy Chen. I'm the product manager for Azure Machine Learning Batch Inference.
All right. So what is batch inference?
So batch inference and the newest released feature called batch endpoint is a new experience we built for you to deploy a model in a turnkey manner to run batch inference. And basically the batch endpoints manage the computer resources for you. When you invoke the batch endpoint, an offline job will be triggered. The service auto bring up a computer cluster to run batch inference workload for you. And after the job is completed, the computer cluster is automatically taken down and you can find the inferences stored in the cloud storage of your choice. And the best thing out of it is you only pay the computer resources you actually use.
All right, so you're talking about batch endpoints, but people here may have heard of online endpoints, and I'm just wondering how they compare.
Yeah, a great question. So these are actually two different types of endpoints targeting for slightly different use cases. Batch endpoint is for batch inference, where the latency to get the inference is not critical, usually in minutes, hours, or even days. While online endpoint is for real-time inference, where it's critical for you to get the inference right away, like in milliseconds or seconds. Both share the same concepts of endpoint and deployment, but due to the nature of the different latency expectations, the invocation behavior is totally different. When you invoke a batch endpoint, you pass in a data reference and it runs as a synchronous job to process the entire data at once. Compute is only provisioned when the job starts and the inferences are stored in cloud. While for online endpoint, you pass in the data through the HTTP request directly, and the inference is sent back through the response immediately. Compute used by online endpoint is provisioned at the time of deployment and is always up and running to be ready anytime to receive a request. So another slight difference is batch endpoint only has one default deployment, while online endpoint can split traffic among several deployments.
Okay, so you're telling us that latency is really like the main difference. There's other differences, but latency, right, is really the key here, that with online endpoints, latency is much shorter and batch endpoints is much longer. So why would somebody choose an endpoint that has like a longer latency?
Yeah, great question. So there are actually several aspects you can check whether batch endpoint fit your use case. The first one is, like you mentioned, right, how soon you need the inference. If your latency requirement is relaxed, go with batch endpoints. And the second is how much compute power is actually needed and if cost is a big concern. You have the flexibility to use low-end compute and run a bit longer if using batch endpoints. And the third is how often do you need to inference? For example, you may only need to get inferences once every hour. Then you can accumulate the incoming new data to a certain amount and invoke the endpoint one time when the data is ready and on maybe sometimes on time schedule.
All right, so there could be significant cost savings, and if people have the right scenario, if they use batch endpoints, right? Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Everybody likes to save money. I like to save money. So these are in preview, and before, right? Okay, so and then before batch endpoints, we had parallel step. So some people watching this interview, they may be using parallel step today. Why should they switch to batch endpoints?
Yeah, we do have a lot of users currently using parallel run step to run batch inference, and it was released last year, primarily used through the Python SDK we're providing. While customers are really happy about the experience, the performance, and the scale parallel run step provides, we also receive feedback that there might be a steep learning curve to use it for the first time. So basically, you need to construct a pipeline, add a parallel run step, prepare the environment, write a scoring script, create a data set, publish a pipeline to get an endpoint. So it's quite a long journey. But comparing to parallel run step, right, batch endpoints provides a command line interface-based experience, which is more intuitive and easier to use. Also, there are fewer concepts you need to learn. And basically, you have your model ready, wrap it with computer resources and several configs in a YAML file, and run simple commands, and you are all set.
Nice. That does seem a lot easier. I mean, having used pipelines and batch endpoints, I do agree that it's better, quicker to just use batch endpoints. So you said that like people can use the V2 CLI with batch endpoints, right?
Yeah.
But they can't use the Python SDK. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, for now, no Python SDK, but you can use V2 CLI or REST or UI.
Okay, so they do have like 3 different options that they can use. Awesome. Yes. All right, so can we see a demo?
Sure, happy to show. So I'm going to show you how to use a V2 CLI to run batch inference using batch endpoints. The first step here is you need to create a batch endpoint. The most convenient way to do so is just to run this batch endpoint create command and providing a name of your endpoint. You can also provide a simple YAML like this one. And the key property here is the name of the endpoint. It is used to identify your endpoint. And also a requirement for this is it needs to be unique across the entire region. Because if you as I mentioned before, we can also use REST API to consume the endpoint. And this is actually the scoring URL, right? Which will be used to trigger through the REST API. And then here you can see it's identified by the endpoint name plus the region. So this endpoint name needs to be unique across the region. And now the next step is once you have the endpoint ready, the next step is create a batch deployment under the endpoint you just created by running this command. Batch deployment create, giving the endpoint name, a YAML file defines the deployment, and then you can add this set default parameter to make this newly created deployment the default one under the endpoint. So
let me just. So I was just want to add something here. So people who may have been using this feature longer than 2-3 weeks ago, they were probably used to doing these two steps in one, right? You could put create the deployment and the endpoint in one step. So I just want to kind of make it clear. If you've used this before, forget what you've learned. Do this. Do what Tracy is showing you. Do it in 2 steps.
Yeah.
All
yes,
right.
thanks for bringing that up. Okay. Yeah. Maybe let's quickly look at what will be the YAML definition looks like for the deployment. So this is a sample YAML I'm used to run this command. Basically, you wrap the model. It can be a local model or it can also be a register model. And then this is the scoring script. It tells us how you actually use this model through this script. And then this is the environment definition to host the model. And then here is the computer resources where you want to run the actual batch inference workload. And there are also a bunch of optional advanced settings you can tune to get the best performance out of it. So after you run this command, and add a set default, now you will have this deployment added to this endpoint you specified here.
Okay.
And then, then it's basically till now with 2 command runs, it's all set, right? You can directly invoke the batch endpoint to trigger a job, which is actually doing the batch inference workload. So while you invoke the batch endpoint, you need to pass in a data reference pointing to the input data. For example, here I'm pointing to a folder containing MNIST data with thousands of images. And a good thing about this invocation is that you can also adjust some of the settings. For example, for this invocation, I'm using more instance counters, which is basically how many computer nodes for this specific job run. So I increase this number so that I can speed up the entire processing for this specific batch inference job.
Nice.
Now, after the invocation, you will get a job name from the response, which is usually a GUID. Then another very convenient command here is that you can just run azml job show, giving the name, and plus this magic parameter -- web.
Okay.
And hit click, it will magically open up the portal, the Studio UI, that you can use to monitor the job.
That's cool.
Yeah, like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the job may take some time to process. So I'm open up already completed job here. So if you see this box marked as completed, that means the batch inference job is completed, right? Then you can right-click this box and navigate to access data. This is where the storage location where we store all the batch inferences results. So I have pre-opened the results here. So basically you have this one file containing all your inference scores, and you will like to put an input identifier here, something like a file name, to correlate with the score you get for that file. So this is a sample results you can see.
Nice. And that file name, you have to do it yourself, right? You have to write the code for that yourself in the score file,
Exactly.
right?
Yes.
Okay. This is awesome. I love it. You have another demo for us, right?
Yeah, exactly. So with this command line interface, it makes you very easy to set up a CI/CD pipeline. So my next demo is about how to set the CI/CD pipeline with those simple COI commands. So what I have here is an end-to-end CI/CD pipeline. Allows you to train a model first, and then after the train is completed, a new model is generated. Then it will auto kick off a new deployment under an existing batch endpoints. So you can add like different triggers here. For example, you can just run the workflow by simply triggers here, or maybe you can add other triggers like submit a new PR. So yeah, this workflow will take some time. So let me quickly open the previous side round workflow, now especially for the auto deployment one. So here, right, yeah, after the training, there will be a new model produced. You can like register a model in your Azure Machine Learning workspace, or you can download it to your local file. And then what you would like to do here is you may want to create a new batch deployment, host the new created model, but without setting the default yet. Imagine you already have batch endpoints up and running in your production environments. Now you want to replace the existing model with a new version, right? You want to properly test it before switch it to the default one. So yeah, first step, right? Create a new batch endpoint deployment under the same batch endpoint you have without setting as a default. Then verify the deployment and make sure everything works as you expected. So if everything goes well, then you can have the third step here, which is switch the default deployment. So as I mentioned earlier, one batch endpoint can only have one default deployment, and that default deployment will be used when you invoke the batch endpoints. So after this step, this new deployment, which hosting the new model, is replacing your old deployment. Now you can safely delete the old one. And after running these 4 steps, you will have the same batch endpoint with the same identifier, which is an endpoint name, but now running a brand new model.
Nice. I love it. I love it. I think people do too. So where can people go to find out more about this?
Oh, yeah, sure. So there are several useful links. The first one is this concept doc. It majorly talks about what is batch endpoint, what is deployment, what are the major features we build for you. And then the second one is the how-to document. It basically goes through the step-by-step guideline, plus a working sample as just showed in the first demo. And then the third is a sample CI/CD pipeline repo that I built, and this exactly the second demo I showed.
Awesome. This is great. Thank you so much, Tracy. It was really great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Bea.
All right. So in this episode of the AI show, you saw how to create a deployment, how to create a batch endpoint, and how to invoke the batch endpoint. You also saw how to use GitHub Actions to streamline your development process. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Great section, everyone. Thank you for doing that. And Bea, I want to say, I think I was still taking out Tracy when you start talking. Would you do the
yes.
last part one more time? Okay, Tracy,
yes,
I'll remove you.
I will. Sorry about that. I will do that.
Yeah, and everybody, this is a good time to start typing your questions.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Ready? In this episode of the AI show, you saw how to create a deployment, how to create a batch deployment. Sorry. Start over. Okay, scratch that. In this episode of the AI show, you saw how to create a deployment, how to create a batch endpoint, and how to invoke the batch endpoint. You also saw that you can use GitHub Actions to streamline your development process. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Well, thank you for doing
Great. And yeah, I think that happened because I can't see you guys when I'm when I'm doing
Oh, yeah.
because of my setup, and so I didn't notice that you hadn't removed me. Sorry about that.
No worries. And Kevin says, great
Yay!
demo, Tracy.
Kevin
Yay.
liked it. Thank you, Kevin.
And Seth said you killed it privately.
Nice.
Okay. I don't see any questions so far. And
yeah, so if we don't have questions, what I was going to suggest, well, first, guys, please do ask questions. Oh, there's
okay.
Here. Yeah. Oops. Sorry, I think we both.
Here we go.
Pipelines. I have a demo for a pipeline. Yes, but it's not ready yet. So it's not going to happen in this show, but hopefully in a future show, I will do that. Also, keep an eye open on my blog. Like I will talk about my blog later, but it will show up in the blog before it shows up in the AI show. So, yeah.
Okay, let me show your blog post right here.
Yeah, so that's the batch endpoint blog. Yeah.
But you'll find your way.
Yeah, that's meant. Yeah. So what I was going to suggest, I hope that people ask some questions, but in the meantime, I would love to see the actual GitHub actions in the second demo that Tracy showed. So if we could go in more detail on that, I think that's something that people haven't seen much. Like there aren't that many demos that show really good GitHub actions flow. So I think this is actually really special what Tracy has in this demo. So Tracy, do you want to expand on that demo a bit?
Oh, yeah, sure. Let me bring that.
Yeah, it's really nice when people ask for the things that we want to do in the future anyways. So everybody, if you have more ideas, please let us know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're always looking for ideas for new shows, and we would prefer if those ideas align with your ideas of what you want to see on the show. All right. So let's see this. Tracy.
Yeah.
Let us know.
Yeah. So here is right under this repo, you can find there's a folder called GitHub Workflows. Right, the training and the auto deployment is what I used as a demo, right? Second demo.
Mm-hmm.
So from here you can see, right? You can add the different triggers, right? Here, what I used is like workflow dispatch, which is like manually you can kick off a workflow, or you can like trigger the on pull request, and you can also have like different branches, like in which branch you have the pull request, then auto trigger this workflow. It's very convenient, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I love GitHub Actions. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah. So like with the workflow, right, this training one is quite simple. You like do a simple setup, and then you start a training job, right? Run the training job, register the model, and then like update the model version of this. I think which is more interesting to look deep at the deployment workflow here. Right, so from the trigger point of view, right, you can see here, it will be auto-triggered once the training workflow is completed. Yeah, that's basically the trigger.
Got it. Yeah.
So as of the different steps I showed, right? So first, you will need to create a new deployment. So to create a new deployment, first you need to get the latest model, right? Basically, the new model that got trained, produced from that training workflow. And then you want to update your prepared like a YAML file for the deployment a bit. You want to update your YAML file, right? Replace it within the latest model plus model version. And then
that model got downloaded locally?
Yeah, what I do is that the model will be downloaded locally and I put it in a latest model text file. And within this, what I have is actually the model name plus the latest version.
Got it.
Yeah. And then I will use this latest model in my deployment, right? So yeah, here is another trick. So I have this template deployment file as what I showed in the demo. And then you can update the model, right? Using --set and update the model to be the latest model.
Nice.
Yeah. Right. This is basically how you run it. Oh, yeah. I have a trick here, but basically you should run this one.
Yeah.
So this is when I first set the deployment. I set it as a default. But if there's already a deployment there under the endpoint, you should not add the parameter because you don't want to mess up your production workflow, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So in batch endpoints, you can only have one deployment that is the default, right? You
Yeah,
can't
exactly.
split traffic like you can in managed in online.
Yeah, because
Right.
like in most of your use cases, right? For batch inference, you're just sending the entire data. So
Right.
it does make sense, right? You want to split the entire data in some way, right?
Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, another trick here, right? If you want to use a new name for your deployment, you can always override it through the COI command parameter like this, right? In the YAML file, I do have a name put there as a default one, but you can always override through the parameters in COI. So this is convenient.
I find that really convenient for demos, right? Because when we put out a demo, there's already going to be some, an endpoint with that name in that region because we created it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then people doing the demo, recreating the demo, they're not going to be able to do that. So I agree that I always also put the minus name so people can choose their own name and get the demo working. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So Ashkal, there was a question, right, Ashkal? Ashkal, you're muted.
Hello.
They actually made t-shirts for that. And you've seen like the 2020 t-shirts that say you're muted. Like the sentence of the year.
Yeah, right? Or can you hear me is the other one.
What is the other one?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Is this working? Okay. Yeah. John's question, can you integrate ML flow and also can you talk about monitoring, for example, insights into how the batch endpoint performed or any other metrics that might be useful?
That is an awesome question. I'll let Tracy answer it.
Yeah, so first part is like ML flow, right? We do have the ML flow support, right? I can quickly show what it looks like. So it's more convenient if you model in an ML flow format. So which is like basically like this, right? You have the ML model metadata, have the pickle file and the conda, which is auto-generated by the ML flow framework. Then if you are using an ML flow model, the deployment YAML is much simpler. We only need to provide us a model and a compute. And
so you don't need to, so it's the environment and the scoring that you don't need to provide, right?
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
It will be much convenient.
Right, much easier. And plus, you don't need to write the scoring file. It's not just that the YAML file is easier, it's that you don't need to write your own scoring, a separate scoring file for endpoints if you already wrote your scoring for ML flow.
Yes, exactly. So to share a bit more about that, basically we are leveraging, right, this metadata around the model, which defines, say, the input signature and the output signature, and then we will leverage this information to auto-generate the scoring script for you.
Nice. All right. What was the second part of the question? It was insights. Yes. App insights.
Can you repeat the question again? What type of insights? Mm-hmm.
If you can use like maybe app insights or other ways to monitor metrics for
that's a great question. So the current way we're providing, right, all the logging things is like through the logs. Because think of the batch inference slightly different compared to online, right? You actually don't need to monitor the entire job along the way because it's like offline job. So we are more going through this offline log approach to providing you like performance data and like how the scoring script runs. So from here, you can see, right, you can right click and then see view logs. You will go to this tab. And from here, you can see we'll have, you will have this performance folder, and we have performance logs tell you like how this entire job goes, how much resources it took, how long it runs for each of the mini batches, all this stuff. And then under system, it will be containing some of the system-wise metrics. You can see it here. And also you will have like the user folder, which majorly like if you are adding additional logs in your scoring script, you can find like all the log informations on the users folder, like std out, all this stuff here.
Yeah, great. Any other questions?
Not so far.
These are really good questions. I'm really glad people are talking about these things. All right, so then let's continue.
Oh yeah, sure. So
Cornwall, I love Cornwall. Cornwall is like the most beautiful part of the UK. It's really, really nice. Yes. So thank you, John. I went to college in the UK for a little bit, and I really like the UK. It's just like this in my heart. Yeah.
What did you study? there?
Computer science at the University of Sussex in
nice.
Brighton. Yeah, which is also a really nice place. Brighton. It's like down like south by the beach, kind of really laid back, but still near London, which is nice. Yeah. So anyway, I like the UK.
Me too.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt. Let Tracy. I want to continue.
oh yeah, sure.
Showing what you're showing us. It's really cool.
Yeah, yeah. So now we have the new model, right? Deployment to a new batch deployment on the same endpoint without setting as a default. Then you definitely want to verify, right, if the deployment works fine. So a trick here, right, because you didn't set it as a default, how to override it? Same trick. You can override when you invoke, providing the deployment name to override the default for this specific run. Right, you will do the same. Invoke the endpoint, but providing the new deployment names that just create in the first step. And then this job will run using this new deployment, right? Basically using the new model you have here.
Nice.
Yeah, and then, right, you definitely need to want to monitor, right, how the job goes. Monitor the status. And also you can do like adding more checks, right, to compare what will be the inference, the output, if that's expected. And if the new deployment passed the verification, then you can now safely roll out the new deployment by running a simple command to update this one, update the endpoint, updates the defaults, deployment name to be the new deployment name.
Yep.
Yeah, now it's very safe to do this operation.
Right. Nice.
And yeah, and you definitely want to like delete the old one if it's not in use anymore. Yeah, the delete is also very simple, right? Just run this.
Yeah.
Batch deploy, delete, giving a name.
What is the consequence if people don't delete, right? It will still work the same. It's just that they have a resource there that is not being used, right?
Yes, right. It's just like you will have a list of unused deployment, though it won't take any computer resources. You're not paying for that, but it's not that easy, right? If you keep the list growing and growing.
Right. So you don't get you don't pay anymore. You just get you're just being disorganized. You're just not cleaning your house.
Yes. Yeah.
Properly. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Yeah, this is really great. As far as I know, I haven't seen a demo like this, like a GitHub, like with this particular sequence of GitHub actions. So did you do this one recently? Is this a recent one?
Yeah, it's a recent one. Yeah, this is the first time I shared it to public.
Yeah. Hey, see, you need to come to the AI show to see these
Yeah. So it's the exclusive content.
We get everything first. We're that's awesome.
We're an inclusive bunch, but we still have exclusive content for AI show.
Exactly. Yeah, this is a really good demo. I love it.
Thanks,
yeah, I love everything. I love the feature. I love the new changes, everything that I'm seeing that came in the last release. I think was just really, really great, and I love the demo. So great job, Tracy.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Tracy, if anyone has any questions for you, where they can reach out to you or the team.
I think you can reach out through. I think I put my LinkedIn profile there, right? You can definitely ping me through LinkedIn. That's fine. And also, you can send me email.
Okay, great. The I forgot to add it here to the banners, but it's under the YouTube description.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Great. All right. What else do we have in the chat?
We have a question about Microsoft in general. Can I get a chance to do a job at Microsoft? And I have the link for the careers, and there are tons of jobs do apply, and all around the world too.
Yeah, and Microsoft is growing, pretty fast, and hiring a lot of talented people. So this is definitely something that we want, is like to see good talent applying, and especially in this area, right? Because that affects us directly.
And this is the second time around at Microsoft, so
yeah, I'm a boomerang. That's what people like me are called. So I used to work at Microsoft like way back when, and then I left, and then I realized how awesome it was and how I couldn't live without it, and so then I came back, and then I'm happy again, and then it's great, happy ending.
Tracy, how long have you been working at Microsoft?
It's over 10 years or quite a long time.
Oh wow!
Nice.
Yeah, I joined Microsoft after my graduation, so yeah, I stick with it.
You must have a lot of vacation then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about working here longer, is that you start accumulating more and more vacation.
Oh, that's nice.
Which is even nicer is that if you go and if you work here, leave, and then come back, your previous time at Microsoft counts towards your vacation. Wow. Yes. And so I'm on my way to getting a lot of vacation too.
Oh, that's nice. Didn't know that.
It does. So Craftable Dan, which I don't know if you're Craftable exactly, if your name is Craftable or Dan, but he's going to check out the repo. I think it's like the best way to learn is like to just see it done and then just try to do it on your own. Seth says,
sorry.
8 years in February. That is something. That's awesome.
I can't imagine Microsoft without you, Seth.
I mean, either. It wouldn't be. It wouldn't be Microsoft.
Yes.
Yeah. What about you, iSchool? How long have you been?
Oh, it's little over than 2 years, I think. But yeah, this is the longest tech job I had.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah. Because I live in San Francisco, and Silicon Valley is here. Usually there's a huge turnaround, but yeah. I haven't had 2 years anniversary in anywhere. This was my first.
Yeah, it's a very competitive market there. Well, I was at Microsoft for over 5 years the first time. And it's been 6 months now, and it's going to be 10 years eventually. Hopefully.
Yeah. I feel like we've been working together forever, and I know you forever. Like, I can't believe it's been just 6 months.
I know. I do feel the same. I feel like you know my entire life. You know, like everything that happens that has happened in the past. Huh?
Don't challenge me by asking any questions, because I don't know.
No, my life is private. It's just between you and me. It's not for people to hear.
Yeah. That was all of our questions too.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Doesn't seem like we had. Tracy, do you have anything else for us? Like, so what's coming up? If you can say, or is it a secret? Coming up in batch endpoints. I guess more work with ML Flow, right? More work with ML Flow is coming up.
Yes.
Improving the experience there. What else?
There are more coming up, kind of like a secret for now. I cannot share much, but it will definitely like meets what you're asking for.
So if Tracy told you, she would have to kill you. So
I hope not.
So you don't want to hear it. Just like, keep coming to the AI show, and we'll tell you. We'll tell you what's new. We'll have Tracy again once we have some more features, and she'll tell you.
Yeah, exactly.
I hate having secrets. It's really hard to keep them.
Yep. All right. So Tracy, so then we're gonna let you go on with your life. I'm sure you have a lot going on, and thank you so much for making the time to be with us for the interview and to stay longer and kind of show us your demo. And also thank you for all the amazing work that you and your team have been doing on batch endpoints.
Thank you so much, Bea. Hope you guys like it.
Yeah, it was great. Great interview. Love
Bye.
it. Bye. It's lonely without Tracy. Now it's just me and you.
Yeah. Seth is in the background too. So
That's true.
you know that he's here.
That's true. If we get too lonely, then he can
Yeah.
pop in or something. Maybe.
Yeah. I feel the dryness from his jokes in the air.
Dryness is in the air.
I love his dad jokes. They're really
I know.
And that's
They're
a new
awesome.
concept for me, actually, because I'm not a native speaker, right? In Turkey, we don't have such thing as dad jokes. So I'm so fascinated, but a lot of people seem to not like it in the US, which is weird to me.
Oh, I love them. And it's funny. You just said that. I just translated dad jokes to Portuguese, and it sounds like really bad. Like it does not sound like dad jokes at all. It sounds like I don't even know what it sounds like. It's just, yeah, you're right. There's just no translation to dad jokes, right?
Yeah.
Dad jokes are dad jokes in English. And that's it.
That's really
Awesome.
cool.
So
Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. So I was thinking that we should now talk a little bit more about batch endpoints and go a little. Oh wait. So we have an interview. We have a question. Yeah. How should I start learning from start for free and use instance? So you can set up an Azure account, like a free Azure account for learning, that you have a certain amount of like money that you get to spend. And I actually have that. In fact, that's a great segue to what I was going to say next. So I'm just going to share my screen. And
so with this link, aka.ms cognitive services free, you can use it for machine learning stuff too, and it's $200 free, which is nice to get you started.
That is nice.
Yeah.
Wait, I lost my, okay. I'm going to share because in my blog, so I will be talking about this blog post. So by the way, so this is my blog, bea.stollnitz.com/blog. And I have a batch endpoints blog post, which I want to talk about today. And as part of that blog post, one of the things that I explain is how you get set up with Azure ML. And the first link is this free subscription that you can, so you can set up a free subscription for Azure to try it out without having to pay anything. So I would, and this goes to this link. Free, start with $200 Azure credit. So azure.microsoft.com/enus/free. So that's my answer.
Yay.
Use our money, use the money we want to throw at you for you to start. So blog post link in the chat. I think, Ashkel, I think you have that one in somewhere.
Yeah. I can't.
I don't know if you need to provide your credit card details. You know, as a Microsoft employee, I never had set that up, so I never actually went through the experience. But yeah. Yes.
It might be, actually. I'm not sure either. Manage online endpoints. Okay, I found the link. Here we go.
Found it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, exactly. That's in the chat also.
And
yeah,
one other thing, if you're worried about, when you give your credit card information. If you're worried about getting charged anything, you can set a limit for your subscription. So nothing will work after you spend that $200. So you wouldn't have to pay.
Exactly. He's saying that they ask credit card details last time I checked. Yeah, it's possible. I don't know. With Microsoft Employee, I have the opposite problem. Is I have those limits, and I don't want those limits. I want no limits, so I can just like experiment. So I need to like keep increasing my limits so that I can just play with things. But yeah, those limits are extremely useful if you're actually paying for the service.
So. Yeah, what do you want to experiment with?
Oh, batch endpoint. I mean, endpoints in general. Like batch endpoints are actually pretty cost effective because they really, I can leave them there, leave them created, and only when I hit the endpoint or invoke the endpoint, only then I get charged. So I get but online endpoints, just for having them created, there's a little bit of a cost even if you're not invoking them. So sometimes I create them and forget to delete them, and they're just there. And so I'm like, oh shoot, I have all like five endpoints, online endpoints that I didn't delete for like 3 days, and then I go delete them. But that, that's the kind of stuff that adds up. If you're just using it for demos, right? There's just no point in leaving them there. So
yeah. And also there is a tool that helps you to figure out how much things are going to cost on Azure, right?
I didn't know that.
Okay. It is called Pricing Calculator. I'll paste
That's
it.
amazing.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to know? I created my AWS account long time ago, and they charged me something and they blocked me for years and years. I didn't even know that they were going to do that. And it's nice to see before you actually try it, like how much it costs you.
Why did they block you? Because you didn't pay?
Yeah, I owed like $1 or something.
Oh, I see. Right.
Mars says, actually, I was interested in trying my hands on Azure ML and quantum computing. So I was wondering if there's any way I can use free instances and still be in the limit like Google Colab and Learn.
Yeah, you would be surprised how far $200 will take you. You can really do a lot with $200. And the other thing is like, you don't need to be using GPU for everything. Like obviously GPU is going to be a little bit more expensive, but like, if you're not like in a hurry to get everything done like yesterday, just use the cheaper compute instances, and that will kind of make your money last even longer. And that's why batch endpoints are so cool because you're not expecting an immediate response. Like you like they just give you the response like later, like asynchronously. You could actually choose like really cheap machine compute for batch endpoints, and that wouldn't really affect your performance that much. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But even for online endpoints, I use pretty cheap compute resources every time for demos, and I've never been frustrated by their speed or anything.
That's really nice. Also, as you mentioned, I guess Mars, maybe you know it already, but you can use our Learn modules to play around, and you do get a sandbox, and then you don't have to pay for that one. So I pasted the link for quantum computing, but you can also search for any other thing that you're interested in.
And Craftable Dan, what is your real name? No, you probably don't want to give us your real name. Okay, I'll keep calling you Craftable Dan. Craftable Dan has a comment for us. Yeah.
Many small VMs in undedicated cluster makes compute very cheap. Huh.
Yeah.
That's good to know. All right.
Yeah. All right. So I think maybe now, like if you guys still have more questions, I'll give you one more chance.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to switch to my blog, and I'm going to show you a very simple demo for batch endpoints, and I'm going to walk through it very slowly. so that you have time to ask your questions at that point and really see how things work. So let me know. I'll give you 1, 2.
Cool. Meanwhile, Craftable Dan his name is Dan. Or
Oh, it is? Did he say? Dan.
Yeah.
Oh, I could not have guessed that.
So, yeah, maybe
Hi, Dan. My name is Bea. Hi, Dan.
Okay.
Nice to meet you. Awesome. All right. So in that case, then I am going to share my screen, and I'm gonna.
One of the most fascinating English saying is bee's knee for a hardworking person.
Oh, bee's knee, right? There's all sorts of jokes with Bea. Like, I don't want to get into that in the show.
Oh,
It's very depressing.
Dan says, love the show. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan. We love you. We love our audience.
Yes, we do. It feels lonely otherwise.
Yeah. All right. So my blog is bea.stollnitz.com/blog, and today we're going to talk about batch endpoints. So I'm going to click on this one, and before we look at any code, I want to give like an overview of the kind of endpoints that we have in Azure ML and when you'd use one versus the other. And how will you choose what kind of endpoint you use? So we have 3 kinds of endpoints at the moment. We have batch endpoint, Kubernetes online endpoint, and managed online endpoint. And as Tracy explained in her interview, the way to choose between batch and online is based on latency. So if you're okay with having your data being inference being done asynchronously and maybe taking a little longer, then batch endpoints is the way to go. And you save a ton of money doing it that way. If you need your response right away when you invoke the endpoint, if you need it real time, then you need an online endpoint. And the kind of the difference is that with batch endpoints, your compute resources get provisioned at the time that you invoke the endpoint, while with online, they get provisioned at the time that you create the endpoint, which means that if the endpoint is created, it's going to be, you're going to be paying a little bit, even if you don't invoke it all the time, right? So do keep that in mind, right? So it is a lot faster, but if you're not calling your endpoint a ton, then there's that extra cost, right? So I think that it makes sense if you're calling it all the time, because then you just provision it once and you're serving many, many times, but not if you're just like, if you don't care about the latency and you just call it once in a while, then in that case, then batch endpoints is better. So batch endpoint is great for like when you have a ton of data and you're just going to call it, let's say like once a week or whatever, and you're going to send it a ton of data and you want the response, whatever, within a day. You don't really have huge kind of constraints in terms of time. Online endpoints is important to have because you may want to query something and get the answer like right away. Query your model for prediction and get the answer like right away. Let's say if you have an app that the user is clicking and you want a prediction right away, then you'd go for online. So currently for online, we have 2 kinds.
We have a question.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Do you in the future consider doing online coding show in developing and deploying end-to-end projects for machine learning and inferencing on streaming data? Would love to learn that. Awesome. Thank you for...
Can you say that again?
In the future, do you consider doing online coding /show in developing and deploying end-to-end projects with ML and inferencing on streaming data? Would love to learn that.
Okay, so online coding. So I will show today how to create a batch endpoint, like you will see me do it. I won't show like the actual coding because that would take longer than we have in the show, but you can find my project here. No, not here. Here. Yeah, so this is my GitHub. And so the batch endpoint would be where you find the code that I'm going to be showing. So yeah, so I won't show live coding, but I will show the live creation of the resources today.
Awesome. And apparently Mars rover Glad came here accidentally and got to know so many things, and of course blog, which I will read. Thank you.
Thank you. You made
and
my
come
day.
back again every Friday, 11 to 1 PST.
Yes. Oh, so much love from our audience. I feel like my heart is warm. Thank you.
Oh, your heart is so
So anyway, so then if you choose online endpoints, then you can choose Kubernetes or managed. And the difference is if you use a Kubernetes online endpoint, then you're doing all the management of your resources, security, that kind of stuff, using Kubernetes. And so this would be like self-managed. And then we just use that. If you use a managed online endpoint on Azure, then Azure will manage a bunch of resources for you. For example, compute resources, OS updates, scaling, security, that kind of stuff would all be managed by Azure. And so this one is like really it's really easy to use, manage online endpoints, and it's kind of the one that you see people using over and over.
Should we explain why Kubernetes is you have to do all of these things?
Well, like Kubernetes offers you a way to do all this management yourself. And so I think the idea is that if you already have a machine on site, on premises, that you want to use for your own endpoints, and you already have Kubernetes and you have somebody that knows how to manage it, or you can manage it yourself, you may not want to come on Azure and have us do that. Like if you already have the resources, just do it yourself, right? If you already if you know how to do it and it's something you want to have complete control over, then just do it yourself. Yeah.
Basically, it's more flexibility with more responsibility. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. And we actually had an interview with Bo Jung a few weeks ago where he explains Kubernetes online endpoint. So you can go watch that. That's been recorded and edited out. So you can go watch that one. And I know that Seth talked to Sethu, who's a PM for Managed Online Endpoints recently also. So you can also go watch that one. And so what was missing really on the AI show was batch endpoints. So we've kind of completed the circle, so to speak, today. It's not really a circle, but you know what I mean. We've completed the story today in about endpoints, which is very exciting.
Yeah.
We don't yet have batch endpoints. You may be wondering, like, there's something here missing. Like, what is Kubernetes batch endpoints? We don't have that at the moment. Yeah, that's all I can say about it. I think it's actually annoying when I'm seeing demos when people say everything that works and they never say what doesn't work. So I'm just like kind of deciding now that I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell you guys transparently the things that don't work also. So you're totally aware of it, you know? I'm not trying to like paint a rosy picture here. I'm just telling you what works and what doesn't.
I know, this is amazing.
Right?
But I was actually thinking about writing a blog post about it because yeah, most of the time, including me, right? We just say like, oh, it's so easy, and then we show it. But then people's use cases are not exactly the same, and their workflows are not exactly the same. And everybody tries and learns, and it takes time. We should all have like, okay, here are the limitations talk.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think limitations is just really important to talk about them. Because people sometimes just, you know, if they don't discover them, they may adopt a technology and then it doesn't work for them because they didn't even think to ask because they assumed it was there. And of course it's there, right?
Yeah, and Sim is asking, is this pre-recorded? So you are on it.
You're being recorded asking that question. So this is being recorded. This is live right now and it's being recorded. So other people will watch it recorded, but you're in the live show. So you can ask questions.
Yeah, and I just pasted the link on the chat. If you want to see the previous episodes, but these are the smaller sections, 15 minutes to 30 minutes, that Bea was talking about. They are at aka.ms AI show episodes.
Yeah, exactly. So there's one more thing I want to say is that I have a blog post about manage online endpoints, which is here. So if you go to my blog, it's, not that, like if you go to that, it's this one. So if you want to learn more about managed online endpoints, I recommend that you come here. So anyway, but today it's about batch endpoints. Okay, so if you want to get set up for Azure, this is what you do. You follow these instructions here. I put some of the instructions myself, and I link to instructions for other things. So yeah, this should get you set up completely. Like you shouldn't have to do anything else for this. Okay, so the first thing you need to do if you're using batch endpoints is to create your model. I already have my models created, but I'm going to show you how to do it. And so, yeah. So let's actually, I was going to use VS, but let's just use GitHub.
We have a question. Can online managed endpoints be expanded to receive a production amount of load?
Yes, they're a production thing. They're actually, they're still in preview. I take that back. They are still in preview. So
do you know any of the internal teams are using it currently?
I don't know.
Okay.
But even in preview, people are using them, right? But I would say that as long as they're in preview, we're saying like, use them, evaluate them, give us feedback. And then once they're GA, then we're saying use them for production environment. So the official word is still use them, evaluating them, let us know. But they're going to be GA soon. I don't know when exactly, but soon. So
awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so batch endpoints. So I have here some code in PyTorch that creates a model that just, creates a model. And I have also some code in TensorFlow that creates a simple model. This is just a fashion MNIST model. And in both of those, I have in the train, at some point, I have a line that says save model, like somewhere. I'm going to find it eventually. It's going to be here. Here.
While
Found
you're looking at it, I have Martha over says, I know I'm bombing you with many questions. No, you're not. We are very happy to answer the questions. That's why this is live. I found that we can do ML predictions and inferencing directly on the SQL servers, and there are very few resources about it. So if it's possible to do an episode, we actually
have one plan.
Yes,
we have one plan for that.
We don't know the date yet, but yeah, we do have someone from the team who wants to, who's going to come and explain it, and it's really cool. I actually didn't know about it. Also,
me neither.
Yeah.
I just learned about it. So Ashkel and I just met with the person that we're going to be having on the show. And all I can say is that it's going to be a great show. That's all I can say about
it. So many cool things that you can do. And also one thing that was super impressive to me learning about it was how anyone can have access to the data without actually seeing the data and work on it, which is amazing.
Exactly. Yeah, you can train your model with some data that you don't have access to, you can't look at, which is really cool.
Yeah.
For security, right?
Yeah. You can probably call the ML batch endpoint from Snaps or Data Factory, if you ask.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah,
Seth may know. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just a curl. It's just an HTTP request to call your batch endpoint. So you can call it from anywhere that you can do an HTTP request.
Okay. Oh,
yeah.
That's good to know.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay. So moving on. So here this is my train PyTorch code. And here I save the model to some path. And the path where I save that model, you guys don't need to execute this because I already give you the model in this project. So this is where the model is, model.pth, right? And there's something similar for TensorFlow. And so because we save the model, we can now register that model or create that model on Azure ML. And the way that we do that is with these...
Mars Rover has a comment. Please don't do it on Titanic dataset, which is really I think he's saying it because everybody does it on the Titanic data, which is a small data set.
It's fashion MNIST, which is almost as bad as Titanic, because everybody uses it. I'm doing it with fashion MNIST because I promised myself I would have one easy project in my blog that everybody understands and everybody has seen, and that is simple and easy, whatever. But this is the last one, so you're warned. Everything else that's going to come on the blog post is going to be a little bit more advanced than fashion MNIST.
So what is this data?
Yeah, so the data is like little 28 by 28 pixel images showing clothing items like a sock, a boot, a t-shirt, that kind of stuff. And the idea is that you can then classify the images based on, like, yeah, you can classify them as based on like what clothing item is it. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I think it was meant to replace MNIST because MNIST also has 28 by 28 pixel black and white. Oh yeah, and they're black and white images, which makes it kind of easier. So yeah, so it was meant to replace MNIST because everybody was using MNIST, and now everybody's using fashion MNIST. So, and then everybody's using Titanic and Iris data. You know, the Iris classification. You know, there's like a few that are like classic that if you haven't heard about them, you've been like living in a cave. Yeah, and I promise I won't do this again in my blog in terms of like using a well-known model that everybody has seen, but I thought that I would have to have, I wanted to have one to demo all the really basic features like training, endpoints, that kind of stuff, just so that people don't have to worry about the actual ML code. They can just like focus on the Azure ML features, but future projects will be more interesting.
Yeah, so Marshall said he's talking about the episodes with the sequel. So asking for if we are going to do it.
I don't think it's Titanic. Do you remember, actually?
I don't remember, but we'll make sure we'll let him know that we want to see something more complicated.
Okay.
No worries.
We'll let him know.
Mars.
Yes.
So they have one more question. So when you say security, is it something like homomorphic encryption?
I don't know. Do you know?
I don't. And I'm just so proud of me that I was able to say homomorphic.
So those kinds of questions you should ask our guest in that show, because he's like, that's why we bring in experts, because we don't know everything. And so when we host that guest, he will know everything about that. So make sure you come to our show and ask him all those questions.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, moving on with our model. So I have here a YAML file. So I created a YAML file that you see here that points to the model that I just showed, that was created, that was saved in the code, in the training code. And now I can do the following. I can do these commands to create the model in the CLI. I'm not going to show you this because I already have those models created, but I am going to show you the models. So if I go here to Azure ML, so this is ml.azure.com. This is the Azure ML Studio. You can see here that I have these two models are the ones that are for this project. So the model PyTorch Fashion, model TF Fashion. Model PyTorch Fashion is the one we're looking at right now. So these are already, I can click on it and kind of see some information about it. Feels like it's been created for a while. Anyway, so that's where those models, how they get created. And then you go to Azure ML Studio, you can look at them. And so how do we use these models when we create the endpoint? Well, we do that in here. So the endpoints have, when you create an endpoint, you have essentially two files plus a conda file if you need it, but you have an endpoint.yaml file and a deployment.yaml file. And the endpoint.yaml file typically is going to be pretty short. In the case of batch endpoints is really just this short. Just give it a name, and auth mode this is the only option for auth mode, so you don't have to think about it. And that's it. And the schema will help you, like VS Code give you IntelliSense and underline things in red if they don't show up correctly, if you entered something correctly. So it's super helpful to have if you have the Azure VS extension, Azure ML VS extension installed, which I always do. Okay.
You passed on, but I was just actually curious. Machine Learning Studio. Can you just show us a little bit?
Yes. I actually have VS here also with the same code, so we can look at this.
So we have a question. What is this live stream about?
It's this thing here. So if you have this thing installed with the Azure ML extension, then you can go here. Oh, apparently load window. Sorry about that. Blah, blah, blah. And you can see the resources that you have created in the cloud in your Azure ML Studio. And you can also, it also gives you kind of an easy way to create like new resources. So let's see if it'll work this time. Like it will help you create like these files that you can then, these YAML files that then you can use to add a bunch of stuff to create your resource. So this is not coming, so I don't think I'll be able to show it to you right now, maybe later. So I'm gonna move on and then we'll come back to this later and see. Oh, there it is. Okay, so it's being a little slow. Okay. Yeah. It's usually not this slow. It's usually pretty instantaneous. But for example, here I can see my models. These are the same ones that I saw in the cloud. And then I can also do something like this. If I do a plus, it gives me a file, an entitled file that I can use to create a new model. So it gives me the schema already there. And then I can just give it a name, like my...
And does it know it's a model because it's under the models folder?
Yes, exactly, because I went to models and I did plus in front of model.
Yeah, so like, and this is the machine learning extension, right?
Yes, exactly.
Doing that. Okay.
Right. And then here I can point to some local path that I want, whatever that is. And this is really cool because that means that I don't need to memorize what these schemas are. I can just come here, create new files, and it gives me the schema that I need for that particular file. And then if I make some mistake, like if I do this, then it just already tells me, oh, there's some sort of mistake. Or if I give, I don't know, maybe if I give it a bad local path. This is not a bad local path. What is a bad local path? Yeah, so this will be a bad local path and tells me, hey, there's something wrong there. You can't have a name like that. So it's nice. Or if I give it a property that doesn't exist. Oh, yes, I already did that, right. So that kind of stuff. So I like using this every time I create a new resource. This is where I come, I do plus in whatever resource I'm interested in, and then I just type my whatever I want there. I'm going to close this.
Awesome. And I posted a link to VS Code extension, so you can look.
Fancy.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so then I showed the models that are created on the Azure ML Studio. Okay, moving on. Then we need to create scoring files. And this is, we had a question during Tracy's interview, that if you're using an ML flow model, you don't need to create the scoring file. But in this case, I don't have an ML flow model. And so I need to create a scoring file. And so a scoring file is, go ahead.
I was going to ask what you're explaining probably.
Yes. So scoring file is, it has to have like a specific kind of, it has to have these two specific structures. So it has to have an init function, and it has to have a run function. And in case of batch endpoints, the init function happens once when you invoke the endpoint, and the run function happens for each mini batch of data that is processed by the endpoint. So typically you invoke the endpoint with a folder with tons of data, let's say 5,000 files that you want to process, you want to get predictions for. And in that case, an init would be called once for that folder, and the run would be called once for each mini batch. So the mini batch size, go ahead.
No, that was great. Explanation.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So to specify the mini batch size, you go to your deployment, and there's here my mini batch size. So that means that this run will take as input a list of 10 paths to images. So 10 images, essentially 10 image paths, like this image path, right? And so this would be, if I have 5,000 images, this would be executed 500 times in that invoke call. And that's it. And so that...
Is there a limit to the size?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't actually know. Tracy would know. I've never hit that limit, and I've tried this with quite a lot of data. I've never hit a limit, but I'm sure there's some limit, right? Because I don't know. Yeah. So here in my simple request, I have like, how many? I don't have that many in this one because I wanted to keep it simple. So I just have 200 images. This is the directory that I'm going to pass, like to use when invoking the endpoint. Yeah, so that's it. So in the score file, yeah, I want to show where the score file is. So the score file is here, under here. So this is where I put the code for the score file. You can see here the init function and the run function. And then also, I want to show you how I point to that. How do I specify in my endpoint that that's my score file? Well, here in the deployment, I have this code configuration thing that says, I want my scoring script. My scoring script is called score.py, and you can find it in this directory.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So when you're doing MLflow model, you don't need this entire thing, and also you don't need the environment also. So this much YAML just gets yanked from the file, which is nice. It makes it a lot simpler. But we'll do that in a future show. I'm gonna have I have an MLflow. I actually already have the MLflow code done, but we'll do it in a future show.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the scoring file, and that's where it goes. So in the deployment.yaml, and this is what it looks like, and also the mini batch size as we talked about. Okay, so now the environments. So the environment is essentially says like what is the runtime that you can use to run your prediction code in this case. And so to specify this runtime, we can use these images from Microsoft that Microsoft provides, and we can extend them with conda files. So these images, I actually explained that in a lot of detail in my managed endpoint blog post, and I didn't want to repeat myself, so I just refer back to it. So let's go find the environment section. So there's really 3 ways to specify these environments. You can create them from pre-built Docker images for inference in this case, which already have a bunch of stuff. They're like Docker images with a ton of stuff installed, including PyTorch or TensorFlow and other stuff. These are nice because often that's like the only thing you need, and you can specify the environment in 1 line, which is really cool, like that. If you don't need to extend it, you can also extend these with conda files if you don't have if you need some library that is not provided in the Docker image. The second option, which is what we use in the sample, the demo we're doing, is environments created from base images. Oh, and by the way, I link here to like where you can find all the all the images available. Like you just find here in this link. Okay, then you can also create environments from base images, and base images are also provided by Microsoft. A full list is available here, so I also give you a place to find all of them. These base images don't typically have PyTorch or TensorFlow installed. They just have, let's say, Ubuntu and maybe CUDA, maybe, or not. And that's it. They don't have Python, they don't have TensorFlow, they don't have PyTorch. So anything that you want to install that goes beyond Ubuntu and CUDA, you need to install yourself. And you do that by providing a conda file that looks like that. So in this case, I, for example, install Python, PyTorch, and this we always need when we're doing inference. And so this always has to be there for endpoint.
And what does PIP stand for?
Sorry?
PIP, PIP. What does that?
Yes. So you can use Conda or pip to install packages when you're setting up your machine. And for some reason, some packages I prefer. I love Conda because I love Conda. So I use Conda for the most part. But there are some packages that aren't available in Conda. Or that are better in pip, and so you can mix and match this way. You can just install all your pip packages at the end of your Conda packages and do it that way. I don't think that I've never seen Azure ML defaults installed with Conda. I always see it with pip, so I assume that it's maybe not available through Conda, so it's only available through pip, which is fine because you can use pip through Conda. So it's no big deal.
And I want to mention Python. If you have it on your local machine, that you still have to add this, right? Because
yes, yeah. So the idea is to create like a little kind of environment for yourself, so that you're not messing with other environments for other projects on your machine when you're using Conda. So I have like my base environment with Python and everything, but I never use it because every project that I create a new Conda file with all the dependencies that are needed for that particular project. And then I can just do Conda activate and Conda deactivate to switch between Conda environments. So,
yeah.
So that's why you'll see that every single project that I put out will have a Conda file, so you can do the same thing. So for example, in my batch endpoint project, you go here and you have your Conda. If you want to run the PyTorch code, it's here. And you have your Conda if you want to run the TensorFlow code. That's it.
Awesome.
Yeah, I always provide these.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, it's so annoying when you are trying to do something and get the codes working, but your Python doesn't match something.
Right.
So it's really nice.
Yeah, Conda has really fixed things for Python. Yeah, I agree. It is really annoying when you like wrote this code and I don't remember which version of Python goes with it or whatever. Yeah. Anyway, so going back to environments. So you can use a base. So here's what the YAML would be. So you can use a base image that has just Ubuntu and CUDA in this case, and then I extend it with this Conda file. So that's another way to specify the environment. And then the third way is to use your own container, and I don't talk about it, but this is the documentation. So in the demo here, I use the second way. I use this environments created from base image. And why is that? Because I usually prefer to use the first way, if I can, because it already has PyTorch installed and I don't have to do it myself. So it's nice. However, with batch that works fine with managed endpoints, but with batch endpoints, again, being super transparent of what works and what doesn't, with batch endpoints, you cannot have pre-built, you cannot extend a pre-built Docker image with a Conda file and then use that as the environment. So if you need to extend it for some reason, then like in my case, I need to extend it because I need this package called Pillow that manipulates images. So because I can't extend a pre-built Docker image, and that doesn't usually come pre-installed, then my only option is to use, my other option, best option, is to use a base image and extend that with a Conda file, because that is supported by batch endpoints. I can create and so that's what I do. I create a Conda file here, and I define my environment like this with a base image that contains Ubuntu. In this case, I don't have CUDA because I'm not using a GPU for this particular demo. I could be, and if I did, then I would be using, something's like, if I would be, then I would probably be using something like this base image, but I'm not, so this is fine. This one's fine. This one's more basic, doesn't have CUDA. And one cool thing is that now this is kind of a newish feature. You can do latest and just get the latest version of the base image without having to specify a version. So that's cool. So this is...
It's also dangerous, isn't it? Because then you might get an alpha or beta, right?
Well, usually these are given by Microsoft. So Microsoft will only take these after they've been extensively tested. So I wouldn't imagine, I don't think we would put out something with beta code. Like, I think it would be pretty
So it
stable.
will be still the stable version.
I think so. Yeah, exactly. I personally like it. And obviously there's always a little bit of a danger of things breaking if you're just automatically upgrading like that. But yeah, I like it. I trust it enough to use it. So
Awesome.
anyway, so then the compute cluster. So this is something else that I already have created. So typically I have these compute clusters that I use for everything. And so I created them literally like once, like a while ago, like November 3rd, when I created this workspace. That's probably on the same day. And I have one cluster of GPUs, and this is the machine I like to use for GPUs because it's a small machine, just with 6 cores. And so this is fine for demos, and it's cheaper, so I save a little bit of money that way. And I typically do between 0 and 4, but whatever, like you do what you prefer.
We have one question.
Yeah.
Can these images come from my own Azure Container Registry?
You mean like these base images?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, this is where they come from.
So, okay. Basically, what you can do is actually extend this image, right? If you want
Yes.
to use it in your own registry. And yeah, it will work.
With
If
a
you
conf
start from
file.
this one. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so compute resources, this is something that I do once, and then I just reuse them for all demos that I do. So you'll see that these names, any demo that I put out, you'll see that I'm going to be using cluster GPU or cluster CPU. I always include the YAML files that I use to create them because that's handy for people. In this case, I only use CPU, so I only share the cluster CPU one in this project. But this is a machine that I use for CPU. So let's go here. Yeah, so you'll see that it's this one, only 4 cores. Again, it's a small one because for demos, I can get away with something small. I don't need something huge. I don't need to waste money and resources, compute resources. And so that's kind of how I do it. And then to register these, then you would do something like this. You would execute this command, azml compute create, and then -f, and then the name of your file. And then when you create it, name of your YAML file, right? The name of this YAML file, and then the resource then gets created like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the way you specify the compute is in your deployment YAML, you put compute Azure ML cluster CPU. That's how you refer to a resource on Azure. Azure ML colon cluster CPU. Okay, so we got our cluster. Now we can create our endpoints. So before we create our endpoints, let's go take a look at the full file. So we already talked about this schema and why it's useful for Azure, for the VS extension, for Azure ML extension for VS. This is just the name of the deployment. It could be anything. This is the name of the endpoint, and it needs to match the name that I have here in this endpoint. So in this case, endpoint patch fashion1. That's what I want. So let's go here to the deployment. And then I have the model, which we talked about. I have the scoring file, which we talked about, the environment we talked about, compute we talked about, mini batch size. So just this output file name is the name of the CICD file with the predictions that we're going to get at the end. Again, full transparency of what works and what doesn't. At the moment, your output file is going to be called predictions.csv, regardless of what you put here because of a bug. But that's a simple bug to fix, so I can't imagine it would be there for very long. So there's that. So that at the moment, this is not working completely, but it has worked in the past and it will work again.
Okay.
All right. And
Well,
that's it. So
you still get the file, but it
Yes.
doesn't have the name that you wanted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's always called predictions.csv. That's it.
Uh-huh.
But you still get the file. Yeah. So it's no big deal really. It's just a heads up.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then the endpoint, right? Which again, you know, I have the schema that gives me all the information I need and to create this in VS, and then the name and the auth mode. Okay, so with that, I can actually create the endpoint. So we're going to go here, and I'm going to copy this command. I don't need to rename it, so I'm not going to put minus name because I deleted it right before the show. So I know it doesn't exist. And so
Dum, dum,
I'm
dum,
going
dum.
to create it. Yeah. And so let's switch back to Azure ML Studio. Let's see where the endpoints are listed. So it would be here. I have a ton of real-time endpoints, and I have just one batch endpoint. Oh, wait, I take that back. I'm recreating the one that I already have. Let's recreate number 2. That one I don't have. Okay. So AZML batch endpoint create -f and then the name of your endpoint.yaml. That's how you create the endpoint. And
In that on your blog it says -- name, but you haven't done that.
yes, good call. So I don't do this because, or this, I guess we're doing number 2, because so I gave it a name in the code. So
okay.
we're doing number 2. So let's go here, endpoint 2. So I give it a name, which is endpoint batch fashion name, and I'm perfectly happy with that name. The reason why I put minus name in the blog is because if you execute, if you're following my blog and you happen to be in some, bless you.
Thank you.
If you happen to be on the same region as me, because the names of the endpoints need to be unique per region, what will happen is if you don't put minus name with your own name that you make up, then you'll get an error saying that that endpoint already exists and it has to be unique per region. And so, oh, you know what? Tracy warned me today that the backend is particularly slow today. This is not usual. Like this would be done by now. So this may not work. And that's why you guys come to a live show, right? Because you love to see demos not work. This is like the one thing that advocates like fear the most is like doing a live demo and having the demo not working.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what's going to happen.
Not liking.
No, this is exactly what's going to happen today from what Tracy told me. Oh, we'll see. We'll wait a little and see. We may get lucky, but it's definitely slower than usual though. So I know that there's something going on today. So the idea is that you need to create first the batch endpoint with the file, pointing to the file of your endpoint, and then you need to create the batch deployment, pointing to the deployment file, and that deployment file already points to the endpoint. It already specifies the name of the endpoint, so you don't need to do that here. And then you need to set it as default. And when you set it as default, then that means that 100% of the traffic will go to this deployment. And in manage endpoints, you can decide that you can have like 90% of the traffic going here, 90% of traffic going to one deployment, 10% to another deployment, like blue-green deployments. That does not work in batch endpoints. When you set default, you can only have one default deployment per endpoint. And when you set default, all the traffic goes to that endpoint.
So what happens if you don't set the default?
It doesn't work. You won't be able to invoke it. I actually have done that before by mistake, and then I couldn't invoke it, and I was very confused. Why can't I invoke it? And I'm like, oh, I didn't set default. Well, that would do it.
Yeah. But you can name it differently and have different batch, right? Small batch for if you wanted to do not 100% going to the same.
It's always 100% going to the same, but yes, you're right. You can just reduce the size of your batch, right? So right now, the size of your batch or even the size of your data, right? Like you could have, so at the moment I have this sample request folder with 200 images, right? I could put 100 and I could just use 100 in this deployment and then create another endpoint with another 100 or whatever.
Awesome.
So
you can still do A/B testing, whatever you want to experiment with.
exactly. And in fact, Tracy's demo was really cool. Her GitHub Actions demo, because it showed how you can have one endpoint with one deployment going as default, like with 100%, and then it shows how you can try that endpoint with another deployment without setting it default, just see if it works. And then if it does work, then you set the second deployment as default in the batch endpoint. And that would be a way to kind of do the transition from one deployment to the next in a very safe way. That's why I love that GitHub Actions demo so much, because I hadn't seen that done before. I'm not aware of other demos or code that has been distributed to users that shows that. And so for batch endpoints, there's been more happening for managed online endpoints, but less for batch endpoints. So
I see.
So yeah, I really do love that demo. So this is gonna maybe take a little while. Maybe, again, this is taking longer than usual today, but maybe we'll make it through it because it is a 2-hour live show. That's what we have going for us.
Yeah. I feel like you are getting faster and faster. Do you have a lot to go through? Because we have 14-ish minutes.
Yeah,
so
I still have a little bit. I still have a little bit to go through.
Okay.
Yeah, but this is slowing me down, so. But thanks for letting me know, because sometimes I'm not aware. I speak fast because I already know this stuff and it's easy for me, and I'm not aware that maybe I'm going too fast for other people.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
I noticed whenever you are talking about your code, you get faster and faster.
Of course. It's my code.
Normal.
I know it. Yeah. So thanks for letting me know. This is great. I appreciate that. Okay, so we looked. I mean, really, the most important parts here that I wanted to show is really the endpoint. This is really the meat of the demo. Is like, how do you define this deployment? And yeah, so let's see how yay! So that has worked. That worked. So now, if I go to here and I refresh, hopefully, yay! The demo gods are with me today. Thank you, appreciate that. Yay! So now I have an endpoint with a deployment. It's called Blue, which is what I call it, and it's pointing to my model, my TensorFlow model. It's using a cluster CPU compute, mini batch size equals to 10. Bunch of stuff that you guys have seen that was specified in that deployment file is all here. So there's really nothing in the runs yet, or there is because I actually have already run this endpoint, an endpoint with this name before. But all of these have been completed in the past. And so what I want to do next is to invoke this endpoint. Oh yeah, so here in the blog post, I talk about first creating the request files. I actually already put these request files in the project itself, so you don't need to recreate them if you don't want to. So you can just go here, and these are the request files that I've already shown. But if for some reason you want to recreate them, or if you want to tweak the code and just do something a little different, then you would go to, I think it's my PyTorch source, and I have here a create simple request.py file.
Yeah.
And here, if you execute this, it will just regenerate those 200 images. Or if you want to create more, there was a question of like how much does this scale, right? If you want to test how much this scales, and if you want to put 200 million, this is where you would do it. Let us know if it doesn't work. So yeah, so then you can run this code, and then you would just write over this simple request file. You don't have to run it though. Like you can just use the request file as is. And so this is explaining that, like how you would rerun it, how you can change your code. And now we're really ready to invoke the endpoint. And this is the best part of the demo. This takes a while. So it's, I don't know. Yeah, that's why I was maybe starting to rush, because I know this can take a while.
Yeah.
But
That's okay. We have a question.
Good. But let me first start this because this takes a while. So let me start it. So what is the name of our endpoint? Let's go here. It's endpoint batch fashion 2. So let's give it the name endpoint batch fashion 2. And you see here that I do HTML batch endpoint invoke and then the name and then input local path. This points to that sample request folder that I showed that contains 200 images in there. So essentially invoking the endpoint with 200 images. So we're going to kick it off. And this is going to take a little while. So let's go to questions.
Awesome. Mashur is asking, talking about GitHub, is there any idea that GitHub code spaces will be free for all developers, not for just enterprise? Right now, I think you can do beta, and as far as I remember, everybody gets 2 code spaces. So basically, code spaces creates a virtual machine for your code base. You can't, and it saves it, right? So when you go back to that code space, you're still using it, but I think two of them is free. Do you know?
I'm in awe of how much you know.
I
did not know any of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's my favorite, really. Yeah, we should talk about that at some time.
We should.
Yeah, so what it does is basically you can give your like a container basically, but on the browser, so you can just run your code in VS Code, but on the browser, which is really, really nice. And the other thing I really like about it is with the removed containers, you can have all of the extensions that you want that goes with that repo. You know, and that makes it a little bit faster too.
That's awesome. Yeah.
We have another question.
Mm-hmm.
If they weren't images, what would it receive? A JSON file? Good question.
You can pass anything you want because you have complete control of how you read them. So in my case, not the model. In my case, in my score file, this run thing just contains, it takes in a list of paths. And so for each of those paths, which I know it's an image path because I know I'm going to pass it an image, then I just create an image using a pillow image.open, and then I transform it and whatever. But you can write any code you want here. If you know what you're passing, 200 of whatever, then you just would need to write the code here that receives whatever you're passing. So go crazy. Do something interesting.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so here, like this has returned like the invoke. In the case, if this was a managed managed online endpoint, when it returns, it would just give you the prediction right away, right? So and they would be immediate, right? In the case of batch endpoints, it doesn't give you the prediction. All it does is it kicks off an asynchronous run that now we can go here, and I'm going to refresh. And hopefully there's a run there. You see here a neat card saying running. This is new.
Nice.
All the other ones were completed. I love these display names. I don't know if you're familiar with these, like neat card, frosty wire, Kenyak, lime rocket, busy juice. I love them. They always make me smile, and I can always use a smile because who can't use a smile? So yeah, so good job whoever thought of this feature. And then I'm going to click on my running invocation, like run, right? So you see here that there's a batch scoring and it's running. It indicates that it's running, gives you these little green bands. So we're going to have to wait for it to be done. But this is good news that it's running.
Yeah. And we can take any of the questions. We have 5 minutes left.
Yeah. Hopefully this will be done before then, and we can see it actually finishing.
Okay. So since it's going to take some time, maybe I can talk about what's next.
Yes. What do we have in the next show?
No, I didn't. Oh, good. Yeah, let's talk about the next show. Responsible AI in practice.
Yes.
Yeah. with Seth, and he's very funny and very smart. So come with your questions. We also have a responsible AI practice event. Seth will be interviewing people, and it's going to be great. Yeah,
That's great.
Yeah, I'll put the event link right here.
Okay.
You can sign up here.
I don't want to miss that. I'm not going to miss it. Yeah. Responsible AI is like more important than ever, right? Like just because it's a big it's a big tool, it's a big hammer, and you can do good things, you can do bad things with it, and we all want to do good things, right? So
we have another question. Will this AI have more features in the future?
For sure. Like if you talk about Azure ML, it's like I have a hard time keeping up with the team because there's just so much going on every day, like more stuff getting added, and I just love it. Yeah. Actually, this just completed before the end of the show. So I'm going to show two things here. You can view logs by doing this, and you get, this is like, I have to like set my resolution to like really low to be able to, for you guys to see my screen, but so that's that, yeah. But usually I like going to logs and then user and then standard out and then 10 and then process. This is a file I like because it's the file that contains all the prints that I added myself, all the logging that I added myself. So for example, if I go to my code, you will see that here I do run started. At some point I say device, which says whether it's CPU or GPU. Oops. And here, yeah, I can see my logs, which is cool.
Awesome. Marshall said, thank you for showing us the cool demo.
Yeah. And one more thing, it's not done yet. If I go here and I right click on that little circle and it has to be on the circle, I can do access data. And here's where my predictions are. Here's really where you can see the result of invoking the endpoint. Hopefully still before the end of the show.
We can make
you see here it's called predictions.csv, even though I called it something else in the output file. This is the bug I was talking about. And in here you have the name of each of the images and the prediction. And I made it before.
Yes, you are a hero. Eric,
perfect.
Yeah, Eric, thank you for a great demo and making it on time. We have Craftable then for a many models deployment where we have multiple models to run batch inferences on. Does each one need its own batch ending created or multiple deployments under one endpoint?
Yes. So you need one deployment for one model, and one endpoint can have multiple deployments. That's how it works. So one endpoint, multiple deployments, but each deployment maps to one model.
Got it. I think. Yeah. Well, then, does that make sense? I hope it does. If not, you know what? You could ask Bea about it on Twitter.
Yes.
What you see here are our Twitter handlers right here.
Yes. Hey, Ashkel, we haven't done our end of the show. No, other side. Other side. No. Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
Woo! High five. 1, 2, 3. Wow, we're really terrible at this. We need to practice.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Okay,
I think we did this time.
Virtual high five. For finishing on time.
Yes. Don't forget to come back for Seth's show next week this time. Thank you so much, everyone, for asking all of your questions. This has been great, and this was a very cool project. Bea.
Thank you.
Right.